We've got Becky who's helping us with the presentation today. Thank you. So this is NCC Education's mantra. Sorry, the previous slide, and it's essentially about taking global British education to international students wherever they may be located, and often including a broad range of different socio-economic groups. So there's a whole range of different students in 52 plus countries where we currently have centres offering one or more qualifications. So NCC Education, we're an Ofqual regulated awarding body. We sit on the Ofqual register, and if you're not sure about us or our accreditation, Google Ofqual. We don't have a certificate that show it. It's a live database where if you're regulated, you sit on the database. If you don't, you come straight off it. So you'll find NCC Education on there, and you'll also find this program we're talking about today, the Level 3 Foundation Diploma. So NCC, who are we? We were established in 1966. We were actually established by the UK government, and back then we were called the National Computing Centre, and we were set up to establish, the whole purpose was to support computing education in the workplace. And there were a number of qualifications that followed that, but it was really about getting computing and computing knowledge into the workplace, and that was our purpose back then. We have changed slightly, although computing is very much still part of our DNA. About 30 years ago, we started going international, and essentially we are now about taking British education abroad, although we do have centres here in the UK, but I would say for many years we've sort of focused on offering a full UK British degree pathway abroad without stepping foot here in the United Kingdom. The Foundation Year programme, which we're talking about today, was launched back in 2003, and it coincided with the opening of our Beijing office. And at the time, we saw China as the marketplace for this qualification. A lot's changed since then. But as I said earlier, this qualification sits on the National Qualification Framework at Level 3. It's Ofqual accredited. And what that does, it defines the levels and credit values. So this qualification, simply put, is Level 3. That's equivalent to A level, AS level, the International Baccalaureate Diploma, and many other such IFD programs. Finally, just before I hand over to James, just a bit of background. So this program is taught in 33 different countries. We have 92 accredited partner centres. The most number of centres we have offering this qualification is in China. And the most number of students we have is actually in Pakistan. I was just trying to find out the last centre we had accredited, and I think the last centre we had accredited, which was a few weeks ago, was Mayor British Education in Nepal. But as I said earlier on, you know, this program has continued to grow throughout the pandemic, and there are accreditations every month, every second month. Very popular at the moment, and it does seem to be pandemic proof. Okay, over to you, James, and the next slide.
Thank you. Yep. So essentially, I'll just talk and give an overview of the IFD, and this slide really sums up the whole ethos of the qualification, in that it provides a bridge from a student's graduation certificate from their overseas high school, which UK university or a US or Australian may not see as sufficient to gain them entry to the first year study of a bachelor's degree. So they require this foundation course. And it does this in many different ways. So the first of all, linguistically, So really it's built for students who have English as a second language. And the entry requirement for this course is IELTS 4.5 or an equivalent to that. I'll speak a little bit more about that on the next slide. But essentially, it takes them from IELTS 4.5 up to having IELTS 6 or above, which is what universities will require as the English language, at least for their English language requirement. It also does this academically, so that as you'll learn, there are a range of electives, and they will get to understand the real foundations of those areas, whether it be in business, computing, or engineering, or any of the other elective routes that we have. And also culturally. And I think in terms of culturally, there is a unit regarding culture studies and what they can expect when they move abroad. I have lived abroad, and I have been responsible for helping other people when they make that transition from the UK to an overseas country, and it can be difficult. And it, oh, sorry, if we can go back a slide, that would be great. In terms of the culture, it can be difficult when you move overseas, and really the unit, it's not going to cure anything regarding homesickness or culture shock, but it's going to make people more aware of what they can expect when they get to another country, and hopefully make them more aware of the phases that they're going through, and then they can better combat that. But then also in terms of the study skills, so the education background which they may be coming from may be very different to what they will experience in the UK, where they're going to have a lot of time where they're expected to study on their own, and the emphasis is going to be very much on them getting extra information, researching for their assignments, and putting in extra work in the library. And that might be very different to what they're used to. And this course is going to set them up for that, so that not only will they get to the degree that they want to, but it's also going to help them succeed in doing very well on that degree when they are there. Okay, I think I can take control. Okay, but in terms of entry requirements, which I alluded to on the last slide, so first of all, the students are going to have needed to have completed their secondary education. And if you need any specifics on the country that you're in, we do have a document which outlines the specific qualification that we'll need, because I'm aware in some countries they may have a certificate of general secondary education, and there may be a higher secondary education certificate. So there are some nuances here, and we are very specific in what exactly is required. But they will also need a valid score of IELTS 4.5 or an equivalent. Of course, we recognise other English language testing, such as TOEFL IBT, the Pearson test of English. Also, we're looking at Duolingo now. So, but it will always be mapped to this IELTS 4.5 standard. But we also realise that these are very expensive exams, and unless a student has been abroad and needed this test, they may not have ever taken an English language test. So we have our own standard English placement test, which is taken through our own virtual learning environment and is completely managed by NCC. So we would give you access to that system, and students will be able to turn up to your centre or take the exam remotely, and it will be administered as and when you want it. It's completely on demand. So that can help you with this particular requirement when you're going through the recruitment process.
Okay. Well, thank you, James. We do get a lot of questions about entry requirements, and there's a role both for business development manager and the academic development manager more so. But if anyone has any doubts at any stage, please talk to the academic development manager, because this qualification it accepts school leaving certificates, but also if offered over a longer period, it can be also integrated within the sort of final year of schooling as well, can't it, James?
Of course. So, you know, I'll talk about some of the flexibility with the structuring of the program. But yes, you're right. Some centres do take it over 1 year. So they will have completed secondary education and then they take this intensively over a year before going to university. And then some centres, as you suggested, take it over 2 years. So they're taking it almost on a part-time basis, but alongside their national curriculum, so that when they have completed their schooling, they have the IFD and the school leaver certificate and everything they need to go on to university.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
Shall we move on to the next slide? Thank you, Becky.
I can do it, I think. Okay, but I'm going to talk about the structure of the qualification. So essentially, all students will need to pass 8 units. Okay, and it's not a case of passing 6 or 7 and then having a low score on another 2 and then being able to pass with an overall mark. They need to pass every single one. And there are 6 core units, which I'll go through. So the first is called Developing English Language Skills. And this is the lower level of the 2 English language units. And this one aims to take students from that base of IELTS 4.5 up to IELTS 5.5. Okay, and something that should be noted with this unit is that you can gain an exemption if you already have an IELTS 5.5 certificate or equivalent. So that will bring some advantages to students, of course, because this is a particularly large unit and they can devote the time that they would have spent studying this towards other units which they may not feel as comfortable or as confident. The second one is called Advanced English Language Skills, and this is the second unit. It follows the previous one, and this is the unit which will take students from IELTS 5.5 up to 6 or above, depending on how well they're studying and how well they pick up things with the English. Culture studies, I've mentioned previously. So this really takes students through what culture is like overseas and how they can get a better understanding of that and be able to deal with all of the differences and potential stresses when moving overseas. Studying communication skills is incredibly important. I mentioned before the kind of cultural differences in terms of education, and this unit aims to combat these in various ways. So first of all, how to prepare for lectures and how to take notes during those lectures, how to conduct independent research for any assignments, and how to deliver presentations. Or you're going to be exposed to, or the students will be exposed to very different ways of assessment. And coming from a UK university where the background in marketing, you know, giving presentations and oral presentations in front of my peers and my lecturers was very, very common, very, very normal. But of course, very, very intimidating and scary at first. But they're going to get that preparation in this unit. So how to prepare for these things and how to field questions, etc., when being assessed. Foundation Mathematics, which is just basic mathematics course to make sure that they're up to scratch in this area. And then we have English for academic purposes. And while the other 2 units are very much focused on general English, building vocabulary, getting their grammar structures correct, this one is more focused on the written side, preparing essays and really taking what they're learning in those other 2 units into being able to write full essays which have correctly structured paragraphs, and be able to get the high marks for in those areas. Okay, so those are the 6 core units, and these are the elective streams. So each student will need to take at least 2 electives. And something I am asked sometimes is, can they take more? And that's absolutely possible. But the students will need to define which 2 electives make up their actual diploma, and any extras will be awarded on a separate certificate. But there's absolutely nothing wrong with them taking additional ones, and that can be handled without any issue. Okay, so in terms of electives, first of all, we have a business stream, which includes these 2 units, Introduction to Business and Accounting and Economics. We have a computing stream with Introduction to Computer Science and Programming, Engineering with further maths and physics, Health with chemistry and biology, Chemical Engineering, which mixes these units now. So we have further maths and chemistry, and then we have Higher Finance with further mathematics and Introduction to Accounting and Economics. So our progression arrangements are built on these streams, but there is nothing wrong with mixing these streams if that is what is suitable. So for example, we have some centres who take Introduction to Business and Introduction to Computer Science as their 2 electives, and this is quite common. And the students will go on to business information technology courses or pure business courses, and they progress quite happily to good ranking universities. But I will say that the arrangements that we come to with universities are defined by these streams. It's just that if you go outside of these, it will be handled more on a case-by-case basis.
But it's always, sorry for butting in.
No.
It's, you know, when it comes to a student choosing their university and their chosen course, it's always important to look at the requirements and steer the student to the right elective. So obviously engineering, most universities prefer to see further maths and physics. When it comes to business type subjects, you know, there can be a range of options. I know we have the business stream, but some business courses require further maths, some don't. But it's always worth the student checking before choosing the electives if they know the type of course they want to progress onto. And that's really crucial. And you know, the program has that flexibility that students can choose any 2 electives. And as James says, they can choose more if they want. But the key really is to check with the university first if the one they wish to apply to. And also, James, is it also worth mentioning some of our university partners accept the EAP unit as well as an alternative to IELTS?
Of course.
English
so yes, well, the University of Derby does accept they accept the developing English language skills and advanced English language skills. So the students would need to get a merit, so 60% on both of those units, and then they needn't take the IELTS exam.
Yeah, and I think there's also Hope and University of London International. They waive their English requirements as well if a student has the foundation year diploma.
Okay.
Okay. Should we move on, Becky?
Sure, of course.
So why has this program been so successful for our centres? So I think just listening to James, there is a heavy focus on English language study and socio-cultural skills, and this is absolutely crucial for any program that follows on from this at a higher academic level. You know, students must have a strong command of the English language, and this program really does focus on that. It prepares the students for their later studies, and this is one of the key obstacles students have to overcome, the English language, before they can start looking at sort of deeper academic content. The program is flexible. It's flexible in its design, structure, and duration. And we've mentioned some centres take it over 2 years. We've had some centres actually offer it over 3 years. Not in many cases, but it's there and it's available. And that flexibility, sometimes students need a bit more time and space to complete the program. Sometimes it's out of their control if they've got to take time out. So it is flexible in that sense. When it comes to the design, NCC, we have 4 assessment cycles in the year, and we don't have a set academic year. So the course starts as per your academic year. And what we've certainly noticed since COVID is that the academic year has been changing, not necessarily in length, but certainly at times of the year. And this course can start at any time in the year. The only thing you need to be a little bit conscious of is, when does the university accept the students? And it's bearing in mind that and that depends on different countries, different regions around the world. For students coming to the UK, most university courses start in September, so they need to complete their last assessment in the June or the summer cycle. If centres require any support with regards to timetabling, the structure of delivery, talk to the academic development manager. We have some sample timetables, and James is always bringing those out. And there's often a few questions in this area, and we have some samples which the centre can take away and use, and we'll look at any other suggestions. It is flexible, and it's important that it meets your needs and your sort of client target market.
Sorry, can I just mention? Is that okay? No, I mean, as you mentioned with the assessment cycles, so we don't really define when a centre should start in the year. The only things we really do define are everything to do with the assessment. And you mentioned the 4 cycles that we have in spring and summer and autumn and winter. And as Andrew has quite rightly said, it's all about finding out what the application deadline is for universities. And as you'll hear, we're talking a lot about UK universities, and commonly the big intake for them is in the autumn, so either September or October. So yes, they will have to get their results by the end of July. But they do have winter intakes, and also Australia and New Zealand, which we also have progression arrangements with, to those universities. Their intakes do start in February, so that the students are aiming for different completion times throughout the year. So that's really a conversation myself or any of the other academic managers would have first off, like where do you want your students to go? When are you looking for them to complete? And then we can build backwards from there on building a schedule which will work for your centre.
Yeah, thank you, James. So just moving on, the programme comes with teaching materials, it comes with assessments, so centres don't need to develop materials, they don't need to write assessments. Exams are marked by NCC, assignments are marked using our marking scheme by the centre and then moderated by NCC. So it comes with a lot of structure, a lot of direction, and hopefully that comes with a lot more clarity for our centres. It's very scalable, and for us to make it scalable, this programme, we provide the support in the background. When we first put together these programmes, a lot of work goes in the development, which means that you can just focus on the teaching. As long as you've got great teachers who understand the subject matter, they do not need to prepare anything else outside what we give you as an accredited partner centre. So why else has this programme been successful? It's got guaranteed university progression. It's got an ever-growing list of universities that accept this award. And I think really another testament to this program, which I'll talk later about, is that the many universities that accept it, who we have no formal agreements with. Basically, students can apply to any institution anywhere in the world, and this program will be looked at. The student's application will be decided on its merits, but it generally ticks all the necessary boxes for any university, and some great universities. We've got some of the top universities in the world accepting students coming off this program who we've had no contact with whatsoever, but they've looked at it, they've looked at the curriculum. It's a robust program, and the students are accepted on merit. And I think that's always been the ethos of this program, is that students are free to apply to any institution. You know, we do not steer students to any institution whatsoever. They can apply to any college or institution as they see fit. And it's tried and tested. You know, we know it works. We've got some great case studies and testimonials, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. So it works, and thankfully, without too much disruption, it's worked over the last year, and that's partly due to its flexibility, but also the sort of dedication of our centres and the support from the NCC staff. Okay, let's move on to slide 9, please, Becky. So over to you, James.
So yeah, in terms of resources that we need to offer this program. Okay, so I think Andrew mentioned before that we give a lot of materials to centres in the delivery of each unit in terms of lecturer guides, PowerPoint lecture slides, student guides. We'll also provide all of the assessment materials you may need. So there's no need for you to write any assessments for the students, and you're given access to all the past papers you may wish. If you want to host any mocks, of course, which is always a good idea. But in terms of things that you would need to prepare, so first of all, it is down to the lecturers delivering the program, and we do have some requirements with regards to that. Usually they would need a degree in the area that they are lecturing in, and because the qualification is being delivered English, they would need a high level of English to deliver the program, usually around IELTS 6.5 to deal with this. But in terms of the number of lecturers, I think this depends on the electives you want to offer. I would say that a lot of the units can be covered by a couple of lecturers. So if you want to have the English language units, EAP, the studying communication skills and culture studies, they could be delivered by, I would say, 2 lecturers. If you're having all of that covered by 1, I think that's going to be not give a lot of variety to the students, and also it's going to wear the teacher down a little bit, and they're not going to be delivering their best. But we also have to have dedicated maths teachers, science teachers, computing lecturers to deal with those electives. So just be mindful of that. There has to be a team of lecturers who are involved in the delivery of the program. It's also recommended that you do get the textbooks to support the students so they can do their further reading. All the units, or most of the units, I should say, come with suggested reading. So if you have textbooks in your centre already which match the syllabus very closely, then by all means you can use those. The ones that I would say are essential are for the English language units, which we use English File for the intermediate, upper intermediate and advanced for those units. And those are the ones that we should be getting for the lecturers to use during the class. But in terms of the electives and what they may require, of course, if you're doing the computing units, you will need a computer lab. particularly for the introduction to programming unit, where they're going to be spending a lot of time at the computer writing code and preparing for their assignment in that way, because they are going to be writing a computer program for that assessment. But for the science units, while it's not an absolute must that they have a science lab to conduct the experiments, those kind of things are going to really bring those units to life, where they can have practical experience and of being taken through those in a lab. But I would say, yes, if you don't have one, it shouldn't impact on their grade greatly, because the way that they are assessed is through a traditional exam, and that they're going to be guided through that through the lectures. Okay, but that's what I would say, that the resources that you will need. Okay. But in terms of moving on, so can a centre teach online and assess remotely? So this is something evidently we've had to look at a lot over the past year, and we put a lot of time and emphasis into this area, and yes, it is completely possible. So many of our centres had to go online instantly when countries went into lockdown, which they did through various means with support of NCC. So they were delivering, building their VLE and delivering online lectures. But our focus was very much on the assessment. Sorry, I'm seeing a wrong slide.
Becky, can you just go back a slide, please?
Okay, so in terms of the assessment, while all of the exams, they were taken in traditional exam halls, this wasn't possible during the pandemic, and we have written policies and delivered training on how the exams can be remotely invigilated. So this is completely possible. So whether you want to, whether you're being impacted by any lockdowns in future, or if your plan is to teach and assess remotely from the beginning, then this is entirely possible. And also with regards to the teaching, while during an academic induction, we would be looking at the centre facilities to make sure that you have everything in place to deliver the programme, we would instead be looking at your virtual learning environment to ascertain whether it meets the requirements that we have to be sure of in terms of the guided learning hours with off-qual, etc.
I think we're going to see a lot more of online teaching in the future, post-pandemic, aren't we, James?
I think so. And while it was scary at the beginning, I think some of our centres actually learned that there were, it offers a lot of efficiencies in a way, not just in terms of, I don't mean in terms of cost or anything like that. I mean in terms of the teaching. There's a lot of positives with online teaching, and many of them have moved to maybe not fully online, but definitely blended delivery. So there's a lot more going on and work being distributed through VLE for the students to work on in their own time, so that they are better prepared when they come to the face-to-face lectures.
And it's not an easy program to teach online, because it's such a broad curriculum, and the English language, you know, that plays there.
Yeah, of course. So with English language, of course, the way you develop any language is through the use of it. And if you're on campus, then you're going to be expected to be speaking English at all times, really, and with the lecturers and with your peers. But they found ways around that, and you can definitely have you can definitely deliver this online, but it does take time to think about that delivery, because of course we've all learned that you can't just transfer a face-to-face class into an online class. You have to restructure things in a large way, so that a lot is done in the student's own time, and the face-to-face time is really made use of with the lecturer.
Yeah, you're quite right. It requires some creativity and some investment and some good teachers. It really does for online teaching. It's by no way a backseat delivery mechanism. So it does require investment, and it requires a new type of skill as well, doesn't it?
Well, there's all those digital skills. There's a different skill set that teachers are getting, but also that you are delivering to your students. A lot is being written of the digital skills for students and what they will require in the workplace. And by having a lesson online, they're learning a lot about those skills and how to communicate online. And this is something which is done in every international business, or maybe every walk of employment now. They're going to have to get used to yes, collaborating across time zones, using technology, or even within their own countries, and also how to work on documents when everyone is disparate as well.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. All right. Let's move on to the next slide. University progression. The outcome of this program is that students get into the university in course of their wanting, and that's a crucial part of the proposition here. University progression, university articulation, arrangements, collaborations has been part and parcel of what NCC has been doing for many years. So this is something we're very familiar with, and it continues to grow, and it continues to become ever more important. We have arrangements with over 90 universities. We have something called our What's Next booklet. We started producing this twice a year, and the latest version came out a few weeks ago. Naturally, I'd say it's our best yet, and it is. It looks great. It's very informative, and each edition is getting better and better. And for each of our programs, it provides a list of universities and courses students can consider. So students who typically attend the foundation program, if they're applying to a UK university, they can use UCAS, which is a central application service that allows students to choose up to 5 universities or 5 courses within the UK, or students can apply directly through the international office in each university. That's very popular. Many universities like receiving direct applications, but if students do that, it means that they have to prepare a separate application for each institution. And if that's going to be the case, UCAS is probably a better option. And obviously there's the application processes for other institutions outside the UK, and our centres do have knowledge of that, and it really depends on where they're located. But it requires a skill within the centre in terms of guiding and supporting the student with their application. And that is part and parcel of this programme, making sure students get the support they need to go into university, or whichever university of their choice. And we see the choices getting longer and broader as well. Some really interesting universities I'll show you in a minute where some of our students have gone. Students do have the option of remaining in some of our centres where they're accredited to offer our level 4 diplomas, which is first year of a UK degree, and that option is available for all our centres if they want to go down that route. Progression also, and something which we've seen grow in the last few years, is to other transnational education programs. So a very popular one is University of London International, Sunderland, Westminster, UCLan, Bangor, are all universities with overseas campuses. There's also Northumbria. The list just goes on, and not just UK universities, Australian universities as well. You see in Knowledge Village in Dubai, Qatar, Tashkent, Singapore, Malaysia. There's so many universities, and this program is accepted by many of them. And also some professional courses. I've got ACCA down there as well. That's the accountancy qualification. It's an alternative to the foundation program students can take if that's a requirement. So progression is important, and it's important for centre staff to be on top of that. I mentioned the What's Next brochure. That's available on our website. If you go to University Progression, you can see that brochure, and you can download it, and the latest version is there. It's an excellent tool for both bringing on new students, and it's a useful reference for students and counselling staff within centres. And everyone on this connected to this program should be at least aware of the What's Next, and some people should have it printed out and on their desk. Our marketing team can, if any centre wants to use that as for their marketing purposes, and they want to add their logo and contact details on the outside covers, we can do that. There's no problem with that. But as I say, it's a really useful, informative booklet and a very good selling tool in terms of bringing on students. What I brought up here is a list of agreements and recognitions we have by country. Naturally, there's a lot for the UK, but also many other countries, and these are all countries where centres have come to us, or students have come to us and say, look, I want to go to this particular institution. Can NCC have an agreement? And that's how most of these have come about, not through necessarily our own initial efforts, but on a request of the centre. And we like that. We like to receive requests from centres. If there's a particular institution you would like to see progression to. And that's key to our partnership team, is sort of reacting to the needs of our markets. So for the NCC program, there's around 80 universities that accept the qualification. It's important to look at the university website. University courses do change, requirements do change. So if a student wants to go to, say, University of Greenwich, for example, it's always worth the student looking at the University of Greenwich website, and if necessary, contact the university as well if they need more information. And that's part of what any student will do when considering a university degree course. Moving on to the next slide, I hope you can see that. Last year was a bit of a strange year for everybody, but we still had quite a number of students where we can, we've found out their destination. You know, it's up to students and centres whether they inform us where their students go. We don't follow every single application. As we say, their students are free to apply to whichever institution they want. But just pulling some things out from this slide, this is a new flyer which we've put together, and I'm sure your BDM will send this to you. But it's a really useful tool, and you know, just highlighting some of the real success stories here. We had a student who got into University of Leeds to do computer science, engineering in Swansea, psychology at the University of Queensland, which is one of the best universities in Australia. We had a student who has been accepted and gone on to the University of Lancaster to do LLB. That's a law degree. Finance at Aston University in Birmingham. Tourism and hospitality at Caesar Ritz College in Switzerland. International trade at the University of Birmingham. That university, top 15 university here in the UK. A student who's gone on to study computer science at University of Deakin, business and finance at University of Manchester. And here's a great little story: business and management at London School of Economics. Normally for that qualification, you need to do further maths. They expect a higher qualification in mathematics. So if students do our further maths unit, they can be considered for London School of Economics. We have no articulation or progression arrangement with London School of Economics. So this student has been accepted on the merits of their application. And I think that's really key here. You'll see universities listed on this slide which do not appear in our What's Next brochure. So students have said to the centre, look, I want to apply to this university. They've supported them. They've completed a good application and they've been accepted. So students can apply to any institution they want, whether it's in our What's Next brochure, and that's really on the merits of their application and the credibility of NCC in this course. It's a good course and it has all the things an institution would like to see. So please bear this in mind. So I mentioned London School of Economics. We had a student who went off and did engineering at Queen's University in Belfast. And so the story goes on, and there's many more. So this is a really useful slide, and it's just capturing some of the students from the last year and the countries and institutions they've gone on and studied after completing successfully the foundation year programme. The next slide is a video from one of our partners. Sorry, I'm just reading the message from Ian. Were you able to hear that or not? I can't. James, were you able to hear that?
Yeah, I could hear that without any problem.
I noticed that Ian mentioned the audio.
I couldn't hear it, Andrew. I couldn't hear it.
Oh, apologies there, everyone. My apologies. Okay, what we'll do, we'll share the presentation after this. Everyone who's attended will share the presentation with you, and I think when you open it on your own PC, you should be able to hear it. Let me just give you a background. So TMUC, the Millennium Universal College, they're one of our partners in Pakistan. They offer this program in Karachi, Lahore, Islamabad and Rawalpindi. And they're a big TNE provider. They offer University of London, University of Hertfordshire, Pearson HNDs, And this program, for students who don't have the sufficient entry requirements, this program is accepted by all those institutions. They accept the English language, and it provides a very good foundation for those other TNE programs that are offered in Pakistan. I mentioned earlier, Pakistan is one of our largest markets for this program. And just a little bit more about what TMUC do. They have obviously quite a clear pathway onto their other TNE programs. So what they do is one of their big offerings is University of London International LLB program, which is their degree program, and they have additional units within our foundation year program, which they've created themselves. They're not assessed, they're not part of the award, but they also prepare students for these other degree programs. So with the Pearson HND, there's a fashion program. So they've introduced a fashion module, they've introduced a law module, and there's a couple of other modules which gives students a taste of a potential degree program they can follow on afterwards, and provide some what they think sort of necessary academic subject skill knowledge in terms of that preparation. And that's really crucial for certain environments where the centre may have follow-on programs afterwards. Okay, so it's about tailoring the audience to the centre's offer, and that's entirely up to the centre if they wish to do that. But it's something, bear in mind, every market is different, every centre is different, and we hope that this programme offers the flexibility to fit in all those different environments and the needs of the customers. TMUC also have students who come to the UK and elsewhere, Germany and other countries, and this programme also provides a springboard for those. And doesn't discriminate in any way whatsoever. If a student wants to enter an international program, this is the first step on that journey. Okay, here's a testimonial from one of our students. It's a centre in Tashkent, Uzbekistan, GRBS, and we have many such marketing materials where we can help centres that once they come on board, we can provide the support and guidance they need in terms of properly and correctly marketing this program to their target audience. I mentioned about amending the What's Next brochure. We have lots of testimonials. We have program flyers and information and wording which can be taken and used on your website, in your brochure, whatever it may be. We also have staff who can support you with webinars. Naturally, a lot of recruitment is done online, and if you need any support with that, you know, we're willing to help you with that. We can join your staff on a webinar to talk about the program, the content, the opportunities, the progression, all these areas which are crucial within the decision-making process for the student and parent. In terms of the program, before we conclude, in terms of future sort of developments, we're hoping this year to have a bit more engagement with some of our university partners, and we have a webinar coming up in the next month or two with University of East London, where any student, if they want to learn more about the institution, about coming to study in the UK, how to complete a personal statement, we have a webinar coming up and the date to be announced shortly from the University of East London, and we hope to have a few more in the pipeline. We're also looking at various additional services in terms of helping and guiding our centres with university application forms, and this hopefully will speed up the process. It will provide access, automatic and immediate access to universities, and we're just waiting for some information back from our centres. We've sent out a questionnaire to our existing centres to help to make sure that we're providing the necessary support moving forward. But I think there's something else we can do, and we have some ideas in terms of more application support for centres. Before I go over and see if there's any questions, James, is there anything else you want to add, or have we missed out anything, more importantly?
I don't think so. I think we've talked for quite a while. So yeah, I think we've covered everything that that I wanted to. I can't think of anything that's been missed. So yeah, just to really open the floor to any questions in case we did miss anything.
Yeah. If there are any questions, please put them on the chat, and we'll try and answer them now. We're happy to stay until all the questions have been asked. It's a good opportunity. Nothing's coming through yet. I can't see anything.
It's because we were crystal clear.
Well, if there are any questions, please ask your business development manager, the person who introduced you to this webinar. We'd love to hear any questions. There's something we've overlooked. This is a great little program. Myself and James are really passionate about it, and we're passionate and to see students fulfill their potential. And you know, this, I keep on saying, is the first step in that journey. It really does open up some great opportunities for students, and you know, it just amazes us to see the institutions our students get into. There was one student on that destination flyer who went off to a medical school. I think it was a GRBS student, and they entered a medical, went off to study medicine. Can you pronounce the name of the country, James? Your linguistic skills are, let me just go back a slide. Just bear with me 1 minute. So it's this one here. I don't know whether you can. It's just north of. Yes, that's it.
Kyrgyzstan.
So the student went off and studied medicine there, and I assume they did the foundation program, because one of the requirements for that medical program is they've got to speak English. So well done to him. Okay, I think we've covered everything. We have recorded it. We will send out the recording. We will send out the presentation. There's this new IFD graduate destination flyer. We can send out that as well. And if you don't receive it, please ask your BDM, and he or she will forward it on to you. That's it from me. Bye-bye, and stay safe, everyone. Over to you, James.
No, thank you very much for attending. Thank you for your time. And yes, if you do think of any questions later or after rewatching the recording, then yeah, just get in touch with us, and we can reply by email or set up a call to discuss in more detail.
Great. Okay.
All right.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much, and have a good day.
Bye-bye.